We're about to start, and welcome to the Destiny Corner with Dimitri Otto, your host, and I'm being joined once again by the Joker.
What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages? Joker back again, once again.
And this is a Warhammer 40k episode, all right? We're not really talking much about Destiny today. Now, I just did an episode with Jester, and he's more of a tabletop type of guy. But then we got Joker, who's a book reader, a lore guy.
Yeah.
So, Joker, how did you get into Warhammer 40k?
So I like lore, just basically any kind of lore, like Dragon Age lore, Destiny lore, Halo lore, stuff like Mass Effect lore, any of it. So I was just like looking for lore and stumbled across this guy Arch Warhammer. Well, now it's just Arch. And he does these really great breakdowns of the books. And so I was like, oh man, these sound really cool. So I had to pick them up.
And so when you got into the books, what did you start with?
I got into the deep end. I jumped straight into the Horus Heresy.
Oh, wow.
Do not pass go, do not collect $200. Prepare for like 80, 90 books worth of reading.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and this is like, I think it's like 50 something main books at this point, like 56, 57 main books. And then there's all these like short stories or short story collections. And then you got the Primarch novels. And it's just, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, I know
and
that.
Thanks to Audible.
Oh.
Okay. No, I use the shit out of Audible though.
Yeah.
So I'll like throw on a Warhammer book while I'm cooking or something, or doing art and whatnot.
I fucking love Audible. Yeah. I listen to and I highly recommend this to the listeners. If you have Audible, please buy Arnold Schwarzenegger's autobiography. He actually narrates most of it.
Oh,
it's
God.
Such a good listen. Oh,
that
my God.
Sounds interesting.
Dude, it's fucking epic. He's like, I grew up in the village of Tal, and my father was a policeman, and I'd walk 2 miles to get the water. And dude, it's so cool because you're like, at first it's a little funny, but then you're like, this is so fucking cool. Like the stories he tells that I never would have thought. Like he would skip school and just go to the city and sell shit. No, he would just go to the city and hustle, dude. He would just hustle.
Hey, there you go, man.
Yeah. So, when it comes to Warhammer, what faction intrigued you? So, like, what got you going?
Okay, so let's see. My favorite faction right now is the Ultra Smurfs, the Ultramarines. And it's primarily because of the Plague Wars stuff that's going on in modern 40k. If you like listen to Horus Heresy, if you like listen to Gilman, especially if you read any of the Matt Ward stuff, you're probably going to hate the Ultramarines. Matt Ward is a terrible writer. Like, gag on my fucking fork, terrible writer. And he made them like, there's this guy, Sakaris, and he fights a Catan shard in single combat. These are fucking literal fucking space god star eaters. And he fights it in single combat and wins. So, like, Matt Ward made them, like, overpowered and boring. But now, with the Plague War stuff going on, Gilman's back. And you got this guy. He was a Primarch. He went through the Horus Heresy. He was trying to bring the Imperium back together. Then he got poisoned by his brother, Fulgrim. He was fighting him, got cut by this poisonous blade, and then he went into stasis for a millennium, or for 10 millennium, actually. And then he wakes up, and the Imperium's changed, dude. They're worshiping his father as a god. His brothers are, like, these demigods. Everybody wants to worship him. I swear, he, like, literally, when he, after the fall of Cadia, or during the fall of Cadia, he, like, literally went into his room after being woken up and, like, pushing back the Chaos Marines that kind of came in to, like, basically fuck Ultramar. He like, spent 3 days solid just beating his head against the wall going, you fucking blew it all to hell. The fuck is this?
Yeah. And then
he just comes out and he just goes, Tatera. Let's go to Terra.
And that's kind of like the idea, right? With the Imperium of Man, like they had a good thing going. They had a plan. The Emperor had a plan in place, and then everything went to shit.
So yeah, the Emperor we're finding out now a lot of this is actually kind of rewritten, I guess I would say,
Hmm.
in Saturnine, the latest book. The Emperor of Mankind is what's called the Perpetual. And Perpetuals are these being, actually, he's more than a Perpetual, but TLDR, he's a Perpetual. Some people say that he was like this collective psychic unconsciousness or consciousness of all these super powerful shamans that were all like what we, I guess, consider psychers now in modern 40K. And they like did this mass ritual suicide and they condensed their essence into one being, and that became the Emperor.
Hmm.
Okay. But the Emperor's been like working from the shadows and apparently not so subtly from time to time throughout history to kind of like guide the evolution of mankind. But then one day he's like, "Oh, you know what? Fuck it. I'm done. I'm done waiting. Like we're doing this now."
Hmm.
And this, I guess, would be around the same time that he finds the Golden Throne and finds the Webway, which the Webway is these like series of tunnels that super ancient and are used to traverse space that circumvent having to use the warp. And
Okay.
basically, his idea was, let's take all of humanity, let's do this Webway project, and let's take all of humanity instead of like being out throughout these, in the universe and feeding these chaos gods. Let's take everybody and put them into the Webway, and then like safely evolve there. Because the last time a race with like enough psychic energy to really be a problem, like collective psychic energy to be a problem, um, existed, it was the Eldar,
Hmm.
and they murder fucked a god into existence, a chaos god into existence.
Okay.
Slanesh, she who thirsts, god of debauchery and indulgence and excess and stuff like that. So, and the chaos gods aren't naturally evil, but they tend to lean towards evil
Hmm.
because that is tends to be the worst or the most intense version of emotion, right? So they're all like based on emotion. You have like Khorne, he's the god of war, right? And he's like skull for the skull throne, blood for the blood god, and he's about death, murder, butchery, but he's also honor. He's
Right.
also martial discipline. So like as long as there's war, there's going to be Khorne. Yeah, same thing with Slanesh, right? Um, well, yes, she's the god of debauchery, big dragon dildos, and horrible, horrible kinky ecstasy parties. Um, she's also the goddess of love, of normal pleasure, stuff like that. So these are just these entities that exist based on this emotional spectrum. And I mean, you have like Zeech, who's the god of knowledge, right? But like it
Hmm.
goes from you know, pervasive, ha 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 ha, I'm smarter than everybody else, should just be pure, hey, maybe we should know how medicine works type thing.
Hmm.
Um, and so you have these chaos gods, and emotion, especially psychic emotion, feeds them, and they grow more powerful, and they're always warring with one another, and they like try to slip through to our dimension. That's what causes demons and stuff like that. And so they got Emperor's like, well, if I like bring everybody the Webway, like this ain't gonna be a problem. So let me just do this. And so he also wants to go ahead and pacify like the entire universe. So because his whole thing is to stop these chaos gods. Now, the reason he may want to stop these chaos gods is because he probably screwed them.
Right.
Okay, he probably made a couple of deals with them and didn't want to pay them back.
Okay.
And he also, there's also like mythology that kind of like hints that like, well, maybe he's trying to become a chaos god or something like that.
Hmm.
Who
Okay.
knows? But like, I mean, this is still being written, right? Up till literally Saturnine, we thought that like the Primarchs, there was 20 of them, and they were all kind of created in this underground lab in these tubes, and then suddenly a hole was ripped in the laboratory, and they were sent out through the universe, right? This is what started the Great Crusade, because the God Emperor's like, I'm gonna get my kids back. They're supposed to be my generals, right? They're gonna
Hmm.
lead my armies. And so he goes out and gets them. Well, we just now found out that it was actually the mother of the Primarchs that sent them out. Now, how she did it, we don't know. So maybe they still like ties into that fact that Chaos did this. Maybe she tipped him off. Maybe she told him. Maybe she like channeled Chaos to do it. We don't know how. We just know that it happened. And so a lot of the stuff, like I said, is still being written. But what we did find out in Saturnine is that basically the God Emperor was like trying to steer evolution faster because he was impatient. He's like, I know it's right. I'm always right. I can't be wrong. This, of course, is the right way to do it. And the Chaos Gods, laughed. This is what do they say about men? The plans of men, men plans, gods laugh.
Yeah.
So that started that. The Horus Heresy starts basically, I think, the first book's Horus Rising. The second book is Galaxy of Fire, maybe? I'm not sure. Anyways, they go to this planet Davin, and this is after. So this is one of those things. It's like there's a lot of backstory, but they go to this planet Davin, and Horus is gravely injured by this blade.
Yeah.
And it's like it's an athema. I'm probably saying that wrong. But it's a blade that like can kill anyone who's like named. If you have this blade and you name somebody and you think about them and you're like, this sword is the antithesis of Horus Lupercal, it will be able to kill him. Okay. And so it's got this poison in. Anyways, so he gets cut by it and he's dying, and the natives of Davin, who were basically rebelling, but then they weren't, go, well, we have this temple, and you just bring him to this temple, and our gods will fix him. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
And so he goes in there and he has these visions, and while he's having these visions, his brother Magnus tries to contact him using psychic powers, which were expressly forbidden by their father. I mean, this was a huge thing too. Like, this wasn't just like, don't use psychic powers. There was like this whole council, the Council of Nicaea. They brought in there was a trial. It was the trial of Magnus the Red, and basically psychic powers were outlawed. The libraries were disbanded, and so this wasn't like, oh hey, I'm just sending a message via text. No, this was this huge thing. This was breaking all sorts of laws and stuff. But Magnus was like, hey, I got to do this. Anyways, so he contacts his brother, and his brother, of course, like goes, well, he's doing his own thing. These people are doing it. What the fuck is going on? Oh, yeah. And then he sees this vision of the future. And the Chaos Gods aren't lying to him when they show him this vision of the future. They're just not giving him any context. In this vision of the future, he sees the 40K future, where half the Primarchs are, enshrined in statues and stuff like that, and they're worshipped. And of course, the God Emperor is worshipped as the God Emperor on the Golden Throne,
which is what he didn't want, as far as I know, right?
Yeah, the Big E didn't want to be worshipped as a god. In fact, there's this whole thing called the Raising of Monarchia, where Lorgar, which fuck Lorgar, all this happens because of Lorgar.
Dick.
Lorgar did everything wrong. Lorgar wanted to worship Big Daddy E as God. He built this perfect city, this monument to the worship of the Emperor. The Emperor comes in, and he's like looking at this and like looking at all these people who are like worshiping him, and he calls up Gilman and he goes, I need you to get here now.
Right.
And Gilman's like, oh, okay. And then he like looks at what happens and looks at the city and stuff. He's like, okay, yeah. And then the Emperor's like, yeah, destroy this city. I'm going to make an example of this. So he has this whole empty field, and all the Thousand Sons are brought out, and all the Ultramarines are brought out, and the God Emperor descends from his ship, and he steps foot, and he forces all of them but the Ultramarines to kneel. So he forces the Thousand Sons to kneel. He's like, is this what you want? to like live in servitude. You know, I'm not a god. You get it. And then he has the Ultramarines destroy the city. Well, Lorgar, instead of like taking the hint, he goes, well, fine. It's not that my father isn't a god. It's that he's a god that's not worth being worshipped. So I'll just find gods that want to be worshipped.
So Lorgar is kind of an idiot.
Because, of course, yeah, Lorgar's an idiot. Well, the reason Lorgar's an idiot is because during the Great Crusade, they're doing all these horrific stuff, right? Pacifying planets, wiping out Xenos species. Sometimes they're wiping out entire civilizations of humans even who refuse to comply.
Mm-hmm.
And so Lorgar's like, well, I mean, if I'm doing all this for God, that makes sense. Like, all my bad actions are like are justified. I'm doing this because God told me to do it.
Right.
Because Primarchs are ultimately like humanity exemplified. So of course this superhuman being who's like the most human that is ever humaned would also have like this super sense of regret about what they're doing. So they would need to find a justification for it. Mm-hmm. And that's what he was like, well, I'm not a bad person. God told me to do it. I mean, how many times have we seen that throughout history?
Ain't that the truth? If you go in on this crusade, your sins will be forgiven.
Yeah. So basically, Lorgar's kind of orchestrated this whole thing on Davin, by the way. And Horus comes out, and he's just like, he's healed. He comes out, and he's like, okay, I've seen this vision of the future that my father's apparently going to create. I've seen all this stuff, but you know what? We're gonna go back on the Great Crusade. We're not gonna act yet.
Mm-hmm.
Until we get to the Isfahan drop site massacre.
Right.
So then we have Isfahan. And Isfahan is where every legion that had turned traitor, which was about half of them, sent all their who they would figure would be loyal, even if the legion turned, down to Isfahan to do this war. And basically, then they bomb them from orbit. They literally just carpet bomb them from orbit with a World Eater virus.
Okay.
And this is like a biological weapon that just turns the planet into a rock. It wipes out all organic life on the surface of the planet.
Okay.
So there's like some cool stories with that. In fact, for the first 2 books, we follow this character, Garviel Loken, who becomes super important because he actually survives Isfahan and becomes one of the first Grey Knights. And the Grey Knights is this order that was brought together by Malkador the Sigillite to basically, if Terra falls, if shit goes to pot, they'll be able to fight chaos.
Okay.
And then, so we already know that, and then we get like into the Horus Heresy proper, where they basically declare war on the Imperium, and you have like these individual different stories. It's a lot of, like I said, and that's like TLD. That's the TLDR, right? And going into the Horus Heresy, we kind of know how it ends, right? Because we do have 40K, and all of this is 30K. This is the backstory. So we know that the Emperor will eventually have to get off, because right now at the so before the Horus Heresy like ends proper, like before we get into the Siege of Terra and stuff like that, Magnus again.
Yeah.
Fucking Magnus did nothing wrong, but he did everything wrong. Fucking Magnus. He goes and he tries to warn the Emperor about what's going on with Horus.
Yeah.
Okay. And by doing so, he just tears this huge psychic hole in the webway. And demons just start pouring through. So the God Emperor, or the Emperor Big E, he has to like literally sit on the golden throne to keep this hole closed that Magnus tore open.
Right.
Magnus, of course, got spanked hard, so much so that he like no longer had a body and had to turn to the side of chaos to like be reconstituted.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's kind of like at least at this point, he's kind of an unwilling ally with Horus. He's like, well, I tried to be the good guy, the good son, but here we are.
Right. So, because as far as I can remember, Horus Heresy happens, blah blah blah, fighting, 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 and doesn't Horus like mortally wound the Emperor?
So yeah, that's where I was getting to.
Okay.
So the Emperor has to get off the Golden Throne, and so Malcador the Sigillite takes over for a little bit, and the Spirit of Vengeance lowers its void shields, and both the Blood Angels, some of the Iron Fists, and I think I don't know if a bunch of Custodes go onto it, which are like the Emperor's personal bodyguard, but then the Emperor also goes onto it. And Sanguinius, our beautiful, lovely angel boy, finds Horus first, and he fights him. And he knows that he has known forever, since the Horus Heresy started, that he is going to wind up dying fighting Horus. But in his death, he finds out throughout this journey of trying to fight it, trying to figure out if the future is set in stone. Chaos gods are sitting here tempting him, because really the Chaos gods wanted Sanguinius, not Horus. They're like, Horus is okay, but like Sanguinius, though, he's got angel wings. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So they get Sanguinius goes up and he fights Horus, and he dies. But in the death, like, he basically creates this wound in Horus. And even then, like, the Emperor goes up and they're fighting, and the Emperor basically is able to drive Horus to a stalemate, because Horus is like, right now he's hyped up on like chaos juice.
Yeah.
And so while he's hyped up on chaos juice, they fight to a stalemate. Horus is actually kind of winning. He's like broken the Emperor's arm, yada yada yada. And the Emperor like is able to kind of drive chaos out of him for a minute. Okay. And so Horus like comes back. But Horus is kind of like, oh, but chaos was just giving me power, man. I was bad all along, dude. And he kills, as far as we know right now, it's called this nameless soldier. Like, this nameless soldier goes over to the Emperor to like try to help him. And there's a few theories on who the nameless soldier is, and the books seem to be steering it towards this character named John Grammaticus. And so who was another perpetual, but he lost his ability to be a perpetual by saving one of the Primarchs of Vulcan, which lasted, that was interesting. But then Horus kills this guy, and the God Emperor goes, oh, my son's truly lost. So then he finally kills Horus. And he kills him completely, because it's not like, I'm not just going to like kill you. I'm going to kill you and destroy your soul, so that even the Chaos gods can't have like this victory. And then the God Emperor gets brought back and interred on the Golden Throne. And that's where he sits until, 40K, which he's still sitting.
Yeah, and he's sitting in 40K, and at that point, isn't it like, according to the lore, like,
oh yeah, he's a corpse
minute
god
now.
He's a skeleton.
He's decaying, and they're just trying to keep him going just enough. And
yeah, the throne's like failing. They've gone and talked to, like, brought in Dark Eldar to like try to fix it, and that was actually a really good story, but that went sideways quick.
how come?
Well, because the Dark Eldar, they're Xenos, they're not to be trusted. They obviously double cross, and especially the Dark Eldar. Don't trust the Dark Eldar. They're still like, so you have the Eldar, which kind of like realized the folly of their ways after the whole Slaanesh thing. And then you have the Dark Eldar, which just like went off to the webway and continued to be horrible human beings. And now are human beings, air quote, elf people. And now they have figured out a way to, because if any Eldar dies, their soul is consumed by Slaanesh. Mm-hmm. And so they don't want to die. They don't want their souls to be consumed by Slaanesh. So the normal Eldar, they'll like have their souls put into like spirit gems, basically. Mm-hmm. Soul gems. The Dark Eldar, though, they have figured out that if they can like feed off the pain and suffering of others to rejuvenate themselves and their soul, and so they'll just go murder, torture, kill, rape, do terrible things to everybody and anyone.
Yeah.
It's pretty horrific. So and the fact that the Inquisition trusted the Dark Eldar just shows you how desperate. But the end of the book kind of reveals that they weren't wrong to. The Dark Eldar knew what they were doing, but just don't trust the Dark Eldar.
Right. Right. Now, the throne, and according to the lore, is like it's doomed to fail. Probably.
Yeah, we think
Sooner
that it's
rather than
going to,
later.
but like it hasn't yet. If it does fail, however, there's a couple of theories on what's going to happen when the Golden Throne fails or the God Emperor dies. There's this kind of ancient prophecy within the I think it's an Eldari prophecy or whatever about the star, this thing called the Star Child, but that's kind of been somewhat retconned. But like Warhammer doesn't do retcons, but it does retcons.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing retconned. It's just misinformation and propaganda.
Sounds like Destiny.
You know what though? At least we're talking, information that spans tens of thousands of,
So it would make more
hundreds of
sense for
thousands
it
of
to be
years.
misinformation.
So yeah, it makes sense that there's misinformation.
Unlike Destiny, but this
Unlike
is
Destiny,
not
where
about
everything just happened
Destiny.
like last week and they couldn't
Yeah.
get it right.
Annabray, what? Huh?
Yeah.
What was that?
Anyways, so we know that if the Golden Throne fails, the hole that Magnus the Red tore into the webway will open up, and Terra will become another Eye of Terror, which is
really
this huge. The Eye of Terror is basically where the Eldari homeworld was, and it was the site of where Slaanesh was born.
Okay.
Basically, and it's this huge, unpleasant. You don't want to be in the Eye of Terror. There's lots of demons, lots of bad stuff happening. It's a bad day for everybody involved. So if the Golden Throne fails, that's going to happen to Earth. And we already had, just recently, we had I'm going to say this wrong, Cicatrix Maledixum open up, and that was because Cadia fell, and it's basically split the north half of the known universe from the southern half of the known universe.
Okay.
Well, the Milky Way from the top to the bottom. You have Imperius Secundus. Is it Secundus, or is that from the book? And then Imperium Nihilus, whatever. You have the North Pole and the South Pole, and there's basically this huge do not pass go fuck zone there, where you don't want to go there.
Okay. Now, when it comes to if that happens and it opens up on Terra, it would destroy Terra?
Oh yeah, Terra's gone. The soul system's gone. Everything's gone. Okay. Terra's gone. But the God Emperor will probably live on. He'll probably be, because a lot of people think the only thing that's stopping the God Emperor from actually becoming a god, because worship gives you power in the warp. That's why the Chaos Gods want to be worshipped. The God Emperor has been worshipped for the better part of 10,000 years. So a lot of people think if the Golden Throne fails and the God Emperor dies, he'll ascend to be a god. So who knows what happens at that point?
Okay. So, and if that happens, he'll live on in the celestial,
warp,
the warp. Okay. Now
he'll become a warp entity.
Okay. Now, the God Emperor never wanted to be worshipped as a god.
Right.
And he didn't he so when he became emperor, did he outlaw religion?
Yeah, so that was part of the Great Crusade, was to bring the imperial truth to all these worlds and outlaw religion and stuff like that. And what's funny is the reason that the God Emperor is worshipped is because this book called the oh my god, I just had the name. Anyways, Lorgar wrote it. It's basically the holy book that proclaims the God Emperor a god.
Okay.
And Lorgar wrote it.
Okay.
So Lorgar is actually in the 40K universe revered as like, Christians would revere Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, any of these people. And so like Lorgar is like considered a good guy, and it's hilarious because there's like depictions of like Lorgar fighting with the Emperor, with Sanguinius and all of them, because he wrote this holy book and everybody believes in it. And it's just like, well, isn't that, the way history works out?
Yeah. And so it's kind of ironic that after all that shit happens with the Horus Heresy and all that, everyone starts going back on it and worshiping the God Emperor as a god, which
Yeah.
is exactly what he didn't want. And didn't technology like stall and whatnot?
Oh yeah, so technology regressed. So basically you had the cults of Mars, which are the Mechanicum, and they got butt fucked in the Horus Heresy because Mars was the site of this huge civil war. Mars actually fell to the War Master. And so they had to kind of go through and purge all the Dark Mechanicum. And when they did that, they lost a lot of stuff. So basically, a lot of like making Terminator armor, stuff like that. Even in the 40 or 30th millennium, like there's a lot of lost technology. Like they were still looking for these, I think they're called ATCs. I'm probably getting a lot of my terminology wrong, but I believe they're called ATCs. I mean, like there was one they found that just made really good knives, and this was still worth, a planet, like to the rogue traders who found it. So the technology was lost because there was like the dark age of technology, and the kind of general consensus is that because AI is outlawed in the 30th and 40th millennium, that it was kind of this AI uprising that caused this dark age of technology. And then that went right into where the warp storms happened just before 30K and stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of technology has been lost. Humanity, because there was a golden age, then there was a collapse. Wait a minute, I've heard this before. Wait a minute. Golden age, collapse. Dead carcass being sitting on a golden throne protecting humanity. Wait a minute.
Oh, I'm getting this now. This is all starting to make sense. So like laser guns, that's like a futuristic thing we still have, but it doesn't get much more futuristic than that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got like the Astartes power armor, and then you got Titans. I mean, you have Titans, but which are these huge fucking like skyscraper size battle mechs.
Yeah.
But even those are like in horrific they go from being horrific disrepair to being pristine because people, it's all over the universe. People know how to build them, people don't. You have warships that like are still in service from the time of the Horus Heresy because they don't know how to build better ships anymore.
Really?
You have old patents of armor that are still in service because they don't know how to build new Terminator armor. Yeah, or it's so expensive, like so costly to build new Terminator armor, stuff like that.
So why is it exactly why everything just went to shit after the Emperor had to be put on the throne? Like everything just regressed so badly.
So you had like all these civil wars, and then you had the what is it the Beast arrive. There's like a series called The Beast Arrives. I don't remember if they ever finished that, but basically this huge orc warband comes and like throws a moon at Earth, and then they throw another moon at Earth. Yeah, that happened. I didn't read these stories; they weren't very good. The first one, so I don't know exactly what happened through them. But basically, once the Mechanicum took back Mars and they started kind of controlling technology again, they actually made it illegal to innovate.
Why?
Because they viewed the current state of way like blueprints and stuff like that is technology the way it currently is, as this was ordained by the Omnisire. This was knowledge given to us by this machine god. How dare you think that you can improve on the machine god? It's basically religious zealotry.
Yeah. So everything the Emperor didn't want took
Yep.
over and fucked everything up.
I mean, he for some reason allowed the Mechanicum to still be religious,
Mm-hmm.
even during 30K, which
Mm-hmm.
didn't help and kind of led to a lot of this.
Right.
So even the God Emperor is not flawless.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, the
And
God Emperor did everything wrong too.
Yeah. You have some strong opinions about the God Emperor.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying he did everything wrong. I'm just saying he got arrogant, dude. I mean,
Right.
that's ultimately what it comes down to. He got arrogant. He thought he knew what was right. In fact, there's this whole story. It's called like The Last Church,
Mm-hmm.
and basically it boils down to the God Emperor. Before all of this happens, he goes to this last church and he has all his like soldiers, his Thunder Warriors. They're like sitting in this valley below it. And he goes up and he talks to this priest. And this priest is telling him, they're arguing, they're debating theology. And his priest tells him about this war that he was in and how he like ran off and he found this stone and this, had this vision, and come to find out it was the God Emperor who gave him the vision just so he could come back and fuck with him later on. Like literally, like that's what happened. And then the guy's like, well, how do you know that there's no gods? And literally the God Emperor just goes, because I'm right. Like, because I'm right. That's literally his argument.
So he's just full, I don't want to say full of shit, but he's kind of full of shit.
Yeah, he's kind of full of shit.
Yeah. So,
He's arrogance personified.
Oh, definitely. Well, when you take a look at the art of his armor and whatnot, you can see it, Yeah. But so do you have any particular books that like really stand out to you?
Yeah, so of course, like the first couple of Horus Heresy books are really phenomenal. Saturnine, which is part of the Siege of Terra, it was really good as well. That's the newest book. But if you want something that's not super lore heavy, but will kind of get you into the universe, will explain things, and this is actually what they're making the TV show on. It's the Eisenhorn trilogy.
Okay.
Those books will definitely kind of get you kind of into the world. You follow an Imperial Inquisitor, so it's more of a spy novel, honestly. Like
Okay.
you're dealing with underground syndicates, mysteries, murders. You're following these leads, and then you've got like paranormal. It's like a paranormal spy novel that just happens to have Warhammer terminology thrown in. It's a really good place to start.
Okay. I don't remember the exact title of the books I read, but I remember I read one, I think, from the perspective of the Cadian shock troops during a trench war against the Orks, I believe. And then I remember I read another one. I think it was like these Russian-style troops. And they were on a snow planet, and it was shit, just total shit.
I mean, that sounds like every planet.
Yeah, it's just complete and total shit. But like, and shit, I wish I could remember the names of those books, but it was very interesting to like read it from the perspective of a guardsman and how awful it is for them. Like,
oh yeah,
no support.
I mean, the guardsmen, like and they talk about this in like the Siege of Terra, right? They're like, yeah, we'll put like 10,000 guardsmen on this wall, and maybe like 100 of them shooting at one Chaos Marine will put them down.
Right.
Hopefully, we're kind of hoping we have numbers here, and they don't.
Yeah,
they're literally they're buying time. They're like throwing as much meat at it, hoping that Russ Gilman get there in time.
Right. Yeah, because it seems to me that the Imperial Guardsmen are literally just fodder. Like, just throw them. Yeah. So, so you're a big lore guy. Is there any faction that you just cannot stand?
The Tau.
Okay.
Fuck the blueberry Smurf communists.
So you seem to have some strong feelings about the Tau. Why is that?
Okay, so the Tau, like, they come in and they're all like, yes, we have the one way. You must worship the one way. And we're already like, oh God, no. And so they'll go in and they'll colonize planets. And then they'll like sterilize the people. And I'm like, oh, fuck you.
Yeah. So they'll welcome you in as long as you can't procreate.
Yeah. So they're basically like genociding, trying to genocide people and stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong. No faction in Warhammer 40K is the good guys. Like, before anybody in the comments or what, no faction's the good guys.
Yeah.
It's only measures of who is worse.
Right. Yeah.
Like, you got the Imperium of Man, which are like hardcore fascists, right? To a point. In some places there's still, democracy and stuff like that. This is like a case-to-case basis. That's going to be. Like, you got Terra, and it's got the High Lords of Terra, and they're corrupt dipshits. Yeah, it is what it is. People live on, nutrient gruel and shit like that. But then you'll like read the Eisenhorn books, and they'll go to planets that are like, these nice paradises. Like, people go out to market and they sell their fruit and shit like that. And so it really depends on where you're at and how populated it is. But I mean, you got a couple trillion people living on Earth. We're having a problem with a couple billion. So I mean, I have to imagine living on Earth would be pretty shitty. But that's the holy world, holy Terra. In fact, the even in the 30K universe, the amount of transit that has to come into Terra just to feed people from all these other planets and stuff is insane.
Right.
So just stopping that, stopping the supply lines is horrific and is killing billions of people just in and of itself.
Right.
So you got the Space Marines, and they're like, they're that. And then you have like, so you have like different factions of Space Marines. So you have like the Wolves of Fenris, and the Space Wolves are like basically werewolf Space Marines.
Okay.
But they live on this Fenris planet, and it's cold and it's inhospitable, and it sucks. Then you have the Blood Angels, right? And Baal is like this horrific desert world. And even though they have all the technology to terraform it, to make it nice, they're like, yeah, but like, if people suffer and we recruit from the strong, then our Space Marines will be strong. And in fact, Gilman, after like the Siege of Baal or whatever, it was it's 2 books. Gilman comes in and goes, really?
Yeah.
Or are they gonna be stronger, or are you like literally going, hey guys, do you want to fall to chaos? Because chaos, you're already living in shit. What do you have to lose?
Right. Yeah.
And then you have like the 500 worlds of Ultramar, and that's generally when it's not having Matarian and the Plague Marines kind of like harass the outer worlds or even some of the inner worlds. That's actually a really nice place to live. Generally speaking, like they're like, the Ultramarines take care of their people. The whole thing with the Ultramarines is Gilman is the like ultimate statesman, right? He's the ultimate bureaucrat. You just get shit done. Then the trains run on time and shit like that. So it depends on where you're at in the human empire. Then you have like the Eldar, and the Eldar are a dying race. They murder fuck Slaanesh into existence. What more do I need to say? But they're so because they're so wrought to their emotions, they have to take these paths and stuff like that, and they just generally come off as pricks. Like that's
they're elves not come off as pricks in any form of fiction.
And then you have like their worst cousins, that still are debaucherous and horrible. I mean, like the worst faction I think in the 40K universe, the worst sentient faction is obviously going to be the Dark Eldar, because they go pirating, they'll kidnap entire worlds full of people just to bring them back to Gamora, whatever it's called, and like, which is in the webway, and just to torture them, just to throw them in fighting pits and arenas, and yeah. So, obviously this is the worst faction, but then you got the Tau, and the Tau are just boring. They're like one note. They're not even good on the tabletop, from what I understand. And yeah, then you have the Necrons and the Tyranids, which are kind of the big bad next to Chaos, because you got the Chaos Space Marines and stuff like that. But the Necrons are kind of this super, super ancient, beginning of time race. They fought the Catan, which were the star god things. And then they also fought the Old Ones, and this was the whole war in heaven that created the Eldari mythology. And it's actually outright stated that a lot of the races were seeded by the Old Ones.
Okay.
So kind of like humans, the Eldar, the Orks were a bioweapon that were created by them. And I mean, the Orks are the Orks, right? Like, the Orks are fucking hilarious.
Oh, yeah. That's what I've heard. That is, and I can remember in the books, like, when the Orks talk and all that, it's fucking insane.
Okay. Red cars go fast because they're painted red, and then they actually go fast.
Yeah, that's what Jester was telling me. He's like, if enough of them believe it, it becomes true.
Yeah,
and it's just like hilarious.
And they get like exponentially smarter too. That's the thing. Like, the more Orks you have in one area, the smarter they get. I mean, they like literally had like teleportation technology powerful enough to literally teleport moons into Earth's orbit.
It's insane.
Yeah. And that was still like, they were still like, wow, like, kind of stupid, Yeah,
and they sound like the Geth, sort of. Like collective consciousness.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah.
Yeah. I love when Jester's like, and sometimes it's like a purple orc is invisible because no one expects a purple orc.
Yeah, nobody expects a purple orc. Yeah. It's just silly. It's all kinds of silliness with the Orks. It's just like, and it works because that's how the warp works, but they're not affected by the warp. Like, they have gods, Gork and Mork, and they're not warp gods, but they're also warp gods. They're like separate from Khorne, because they're gods of war, but they're not gods of war.
Right. And
this was something that the Old Ones and that even the old Eldari knew how to do, was create gods. Because you have Cain, I think it's Cain Mencha Cain, who is the Eldari god of war, and these like aspects of Cain will come and like fight for the Eldari. And then you have like the Laughing God, who is the god of the Harlequins, who's also separate, who's like not an actual chaos god. So there's ways, and this is why people think that the God Emperor is going to become a god, because obviously there's ways of controlled belief in something that spawns a god. So, but yeah, back to the Tau. Fuck the Tau.
And then we got the Tyranids and the
Tyranids are basically the space flood from Halo, like the flood from Halo, only like more insectoid.
Oh yeah, they kind of look like xenomorphs to me, somewhat. Yeah. And the Necrons, weren't they like corrupted from what they were?
Yeah. So once they became, so they're like, okay, we're gonna get these, we're gonna like help the Catan out, and we're gonna like, they're gonna help us because our star is literally killing us with cancer. So yeah, we're gonna become immortal and stuff. And then the Catan betrayed them, because of course. And so then they're like, well, fuck it, robot bodies for everyone. And then once they got the robot bodies, they like became these like soulless kind of killing machines. I mean, they're not brainless by any stretch of the imagination, but they're definitely not good guy. You don't want to meet them in Dark Alley.
Now, I know you hate the Tau. So is there a race that you particularly like I know lore wise, but like in general, like you just really, really like that faction or whatever?
Okay, so this is going to sound like heresy, but I love the Lunar Wolves.
Okay.
The Lunar Wolves became the Sons of Horus, and you can see why that would be heretical.
Yeah.
But again, the Lunar Wolves that you see in the first couple of books, they make you really, really like the faction. And then Blood Angels is always going to be like people's favorites. I mean, I don't know anyone who doesn't like the Blood Angels. And then you have Space Wolves are also pretty cool. But really, right now, the faction that's growing on me because of the Dark Imperium books, because all the stuff going on with Guilliman, is the Ultramarines. Like right now, that's my favorite faction. Simply because, like I said, all the stuff going on with Guilliman, all the stuff going on with the Plague Wars and stuff like that. It's just all this plot moving the story forward.
Mm-hmm.
That just centers around it, and like Guilliman just kind of like coming back and having to navigate this world where like people think he's a demigod, and he's like, my father hated religion. I'm not a demigod. Lorgard literally wrote the Laetitius Divinitatis, and like Guilliman just he wants to go off. And he's like, and again he's a man at a time, kind of like that Captain America thing, right?
Yeah.
So he's a man at a time. All his brothers are like either dead or evil or like lost. Russ is like fucking sleeping on a rock somewhere for like 10,000 years, brooding like a little bitch. Or no. That's the lion. Never mind. I misspoke. That wasn't Russ. That's Lionel Johnson.
Well, I just wish the Ultramarines didn't look so fucking boring.
Right. Well, I mean, they're the Ultramarines.
Yeah. Yeah. They're just boring. Like that's the thing. Like they're so freaking cool, but their armor's so damn boring looking.
Yeah.
So maybe the cooler they are, the less intriguing their armor looks because they don't feel the need to.
Right. I mean,
add
then you like compare it like to the Space Wolves, and they like got all these runes inscribed in their arm, and they got like skulls and shit hanging from it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
or you got the Black Templars, just jet black armor and skulls everywhere.
Yeah. So so does that mean that like the Lunar Wolves are Chaos Space Marines now, or?
No, the Lunar Wolves are still good guys. They're Vikings. They're Viking Space Wolves.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can they change into werewolves and
they have this the Venric, oh god, the Wolfen, I can't remember what it's called,
right?
Off the top of my head. But they have this flaw in their gene seed that can cause them over time to transform into this like wolf creature.
Okay.
Same thing. The Blood Angels have not an identical flaw, but like a very similar one. They have the Black Rage and the Red Thirst. The Red Thirst makes them crave blood. They're space vampires.
Okay.
And then the Black Rage makes it to where they relive the death of Sanguinius.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, and they go crazy. So.
Okay. So, is there any particular book or series that you just fucking hated? You were like, this is dog shit.
Oh, what was it? The Beast. Yeah. I read the first one, and I was like, I'm done. The Beast Arises, I think, is the series.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were just like, this is horrible. It wasn't well written.
And it had a great premise, right, man? It's like, the 32nd millennium, the Horus Heresy is ancient history. After centuries of peace, the Imperium is thrown into peril anew as a great menace in the galaxy rises from the Ork Empire. Dun, dun, dun.
And you're just
like, oh, that sounds cool. And then it's just terrible.
Yeah. Well, that sounds really disappointing. That sucks. It's
yeah.
Like, wow, this is really cool. And then you play it and you're like, this is shit. Fuck this.
Yeah, basically.
Friggin' now I know that is part of the reason, like, wait, how long ago did you get into 40K?
2 years ago now.
Oh, okay, so it's relatively recent.
Yeah, it's relatively recently.
Right, well, then that nullifies my question. Never mind. But I was gonna say, like, do you play Titan because you like Space Marines? You know, but no,
Nah.
no. But have you ever tried to make your Titan look like a Space Marine?
Nah, dude.
You're
Nah.
like, no. All right, all right.
I mean, we got the shoulder pads now to do it though, but
Oh,
like,
Jesus Christ! The shoulder pads now. Oh my God,
uh,
they're so horrendous. But you know, now you said what you think people should do if they're trying to get into reading the Warhammer. What would you tell people not to do if they're trying to start getting into reading Warhammer?
don't start with Horus Heresy, but start with Horus Heresy, but don't start with Horus Heresy. It's one of those things. It's like, don't go to the bookstore and like go, okay, well, I'm gonna pick up the Horus Heresy and like buy it like you're buying Harry, like the whole volume of Harry Potter or something, the whole book set,
Yeah.
whatever. It's daunting. Like these are books that are like 2 inches thick, easy. Um, so it's a really hard to get into if you don't know you're gonna like this grim, dark, space fantasy, space opera.
Mm-hmm.
So I say start with the Eisenhorn. Um, Also, like, don't jump headlong into the tabletop one. That's like super expensive hobby. Yes, it's coming down now, but they did just release the new Indomitus Crusade.
Okay.
But it's one of those things like you got to get the models, you got to paint the models, you got to build your army up. So if it's something that like you're going to be playing, if you got people that play and they're trying to get you into it, yeah, sure, why not? But if you're like going to try to do it on your own, I would definitely consider doing a lot of research before you jumped headlong into that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't just go like I'm at the hobby shop one day and like let me go waste, $200 for something I'm not going to do.
Yeah. I remember Jester saying, like, he stopped playing Tyranids because it just costs way too much money. Because
Yeah.
Tyranids, you need a huge army to do, and
Yeah, and I'm not saying like don't go and like be interested and like try to get into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like do your research, like find out what you want to play first, go buy that.
Mm-hmm.
And Space Marines are OP right now, so there you go.
And is that why you never got into the tabletop? Just not your thing?
Yeah, just not my thing. That's way too much work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Painting
You've
the
already got enough.
miniatures and stuff like that. I respect people who do it, and I know you can like. There's people who like offer that as a service where you can go and like send it off, and like you buy the miniatures and you can send it to them, and they'll paint it and they'll send it back to you. But it's like that's. I got too much on my plate.
Right. Yeah. Now, when it comes to Warhammer and whatnot, w- you know, I know everybody loves the Imperium of Man. They find them to be the most interesting, and especially the Imperial Guardsmen legions and whatnot.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
do you know much about the Death Corps of Krieg?
That sounds familiar. Hold on. Death Corps of Krieg. Is this what I think this is? I'm gonna like see this picture pop up, and I'm gonna be yes. They're the ones that look like the World War II soldiers.
Yes. Yes. See,
Yeah,
now,
they're like
obviously,
on a
I like
hell
them a
world.
lot.
It's like basically you turn 14, you get a gun if you're lucky enough to turn 14.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I know Jester doesn't really know a lot about them, so I'm still trying to find somebody in the community who can tell me more about their lore.
Well, hold on. I don't know a ton about them. I just vaguely remember them in passing, type thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember this really cool video that I
Okay.
saw that I can link you.
Okay.
And Death Corps Krieg, blah blah blah. And it's by Arch Warhammer. It has 1.1 million views. So there you go.
Wow, there you go. Yeah.
I'm not gonna play it, but yeah, Arch Warhammer has a it's like 40k lore, the Death Corps of Krieg, and yeah, so
Okay. Yeah. I know me and Jester were talking about the Armageddon Steel Legion briefly, and how they're just perpetually locked in a war in Armageddon with the Orks, and they just cannot get rid of them.
right.
Yeah. But
Yeah, and then Armageddon's gonna fall again because Angron's gonna show up on Armageddon again.
Okay.
Armageddon, like this is one of those things where you don't know if something's a retcon or if it's just happening again, and we're hearing different versions. So in the original 40K lore, you had the fall of Armageddon,
Yeah.
and then more recently, and by recently I mean the last decade, I don't know when, you had the War of Armageddon again, but like with Korn and with fucking Angron appearing. And this actually got into like a really interesting scenario where the Grey Knights come in and they were going to exterminatus the entire planet, which is like just wipe it out. Because it's like, well, yes, okay, so there's civilians still here, but they saw chaos and we can't have that.
Mm-hmm.
And the Space Wolves, they're like, the fuck you talking about? We're not killing innocent people who just went through fucking hell because you're worried that they know about chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so you had like this like Cold War between the Grey Knights and the not the Lunar Wolves. I keep wanting to call them the Lunar Wolves. The Space Wolves. And that was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's considered the second Battle of Armageddon in like the aftermath. And then now you have in the new codex that's coming out, there's a mention of Angron arriving on Armageddon.
Okay. Now, is there now you have you have like your favorite factions and whatnot. Do you follow any of the Imperial Guard legions? Do you look for books on certain ones?
No,
or?
I don't. So I'm definitely more considered. I like more of the core plot stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And anything with like Imperial Legion stuff is gonna generally be
Like a
side
side
plot.
story. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some really good side stories. What is his name? Ah, I keep meaning to pick them up because I know the general idea of them. Caiaphas Cain. Commissar Caiaphas Cain. He's like the most badass motherfucker who's ever lived.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all an accident.
Okay.
Right? Like he's like that guy who's like, I don't want to be on the front lines, so I want to be as far away from danger as possible. But he keeps getting sent to the front lines, and he keeps doing exceedingly well through happenstance and accident and bullshittery.
Yeah.
And then he like keeps getting put in even more dangerous positions and promoted even more. And
Yeah.
it's like, I just wanted a desk job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I keep being told that I need to read those books, but I haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah, I remember reading one. It was like a jungle. They were deployed to a jungle planet, and I gotta find that one again because that was a really good story. I gotta go on Audible and just look through all the
Yeah,
books and see if I can remember any of them.
I think they just had a new, and this is where I'm like annoyed with the way that the books are coming out now. So
Mm-hmm.
you have the Horus Heresy technically wrapped up, and then they went to the Siege of Terra. Okay, but it's like Horus Heresy, the Siege of Terra, but it's also the Siege of Terra. It's like supposed to be its own thing, but it's like part of the Horus Heresy, but it's not part of the Horus Heresy. It's like Horus Heresy 2, Electra Boogaloo. And then they just started the Indomitus stuff. But they'd already, and the Indomitus stuff happens like just after Gilliman comes back. However, they'd already started stuff with the Plague Wars, which was after the Indomitus Crusade was over with. So it's like, you're really killing my tension here, man.
Right.
Like, I just, I can't be bothered with a lot of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like they
So
just put out, what was it? Oh yeah, there it goes. The Avenging Sun, a Dawn of Fire book by Guy Haley that just came out. And yeah, so that's the newest air quote newest book, and that's got my my boy Rowboat Girly Man on the cover. So
Hmm.
hopefully it's interesting. I mean, Guy Haley wrote it. He's not Dan Abnett, but
Hmm.
who is?
Is there anything else book in the book community or whatnot that you're looking forward to?
Well, after Saturnine left off really good, there's like I think there's 2 or 3 more books left in Siege. Like it's coming to a close, so
Right.
I'm super hyped about that.
Okay.
Um, I think it's 3 more books. Siege of Terra.
So Terra's currently under siege in the lore.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
They're getting their proverbial bouteilles stomped in. Though, I mean, we just had like in the last book, we had Fulgrim. Okay, there's 4 books left. We had Fulgrim fight Dorn, and that was super cool.
Okay.
We had like just Sanguinius being a boss fighting, and that's kind of leading to a fight between Sanguinius and Angron. And then we have because he's like seeing stuff through Angron's mind through this book, and it's really taking a toll on him. And then you have Jackatai Khan and the White Scars just being bosses. They're just riding out on motorcycles, killing things, like
Hmm.
just totally putting Matari to shame.
And is there any? Are they worried about the emperor or the palace getting like, sieged or whatnot, or
Well, I mean, so like right now you have obviously like the Palace of Terra. When we talk about the Palace of Terra, we're literally talking about a continent-sized palace,
Yeah.
right? Across
Yeah.
the Himalayas and stuff like that. So like this isn't a small like when you siege in the Palace of Terra, you're sieging like literally Earth. Um, so you have this whole siege going on, and yeah, I mean you've got Horus in the air. They're bringing the Titans down. They've lost the Lions Gate. They've actually, I think they've lost 2 ports at this point, 2 spaceports, and so this is going to allow them to bring down Titans and stuff like that to like really join the battle proper. And basically everything is just hold the line until Gilliman and the Lion get there.
Right. Now, I thought Horus was dead. I thought the emperor killed him.
Not in the Siege of Terra. No, that happens at the very end. That's the last battle, my dude.
Oh, okay.
Gonna be the
So
last.
what I'm
So
getting
we
is,
know how it ends because we have the 40K lore.
but we
Okay,
don't know what happened during it.
so we don't know like all the little events
Okay, so
that
that's
led
what
up
these
to it,
books are
and
covering.
that's so it's like the fall of Reach. Like Halo Reach. We know that Reach falls. Now we're watching how it happens.
Hmm.
Yep.
Okay, so it's these books are basically trying to give context to those big events that we kind of know about, but we don't know everything about them.
Right. And again, there's like with the thing that I talked about earlier with the Primarchs being scattered, right? We now know about their mother. We now know about the Primarch project. We now know that she had some sort of hand in the scattering of the Primarchs trying to save them from their father.
Okay.
Okay, and his indoctrination and his, what she thought was madness. Which is kind of an interesting take.
Hmm. Do you think she did the right thing?
uh No, but only because I know Big E's like total plan,
Yeah.
you know. So I think, but that goes back to his arrogance. He doesn't feel like he needs to explain himself to anyone. He doesn't feel like he needs to tell people about things. Like, had he told like the Primarchs about chaos, maybe some of them would have fallen to chaos. Maybe, but then they also would have been better guarded,
Yeah.
to like understand the trappings of chaos. Maybe if he'd like brought Magnus to the side and said, "Hey, this is why I don't want you using your psychic powers," instead of just backhanding him, like, "No, Magnus, stop," had
Yeah.
he like explained it, it's like the ultimate parent because I said so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like a lot of the problem with the God Emperor. He's like he just doesn't take the time, and it's not like he can't, because I think Corvus Corax knew about the warp
Right.
and all this, or at least had an idea about the warp. So it's not like he wasn't willing to, and I think like they talk about it at one point, and it's just like, oh well, you never asked is
Yeah.
basically what it comes down to, and it's like the You send your generals out, not knowing like that there's this enemy in the warp that can ultimately like spell their downfall. Like, what if they'd like, run into a civilization that was like fully chaos? They'd run into chaos stuff before, right? Because you travel through the warp. If your Geller field even flickers, you're going to be fighting demons. They thought demons were just kind of this like thing that like existed in the warp that was like the wind blowing. It's not. It doesn't have a brain. It's not sentient. There's no like real anything behind it, but it does like exist.
Right.
It's just Xenos, right? Yeah, it's just Tyranids. It's just Xenos, man. We see crazy shit all the time. But then you have like, who knows? I mean, they could have come up against, because we see like these huge chaos cults. We see Chaos Marines now. I'm actually surprised they never. I mean, I guess you could say that the lair, because there's a planet that they go to in the first book, and they fight the lair. And the lair were definitely Slaneshi worshippers. That's where Fulgrim gets the lair blade, and that's where Fulgrim's fall. Fulgrim is probably. I know I was talking about Gilliman and all that stuff, but now that I mentioned Fulgrim's probably one of my favorite characters as well. Just because he's this pompous, peacocking dipshit, okay? He was like obsessed with perfection.
Right.
And then in the he falls to Slanesh and stuff like that. But there's like you do see his downfall. Like it basically he kills his brother and he's done. It breaks him. But then later on in like the 40th millennium, there's this guy named Fabius Bile. And he creates a Fulgrim clone. Okay, like a perfect clone of Fulgrim. And this clone is actually like starts to remember like what happened and gets told what happened and is absolutely appalled by what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, oh, dude, like Fulgrim redemption arc maybe?
Right.
But then he gets sold to a robot dude. Oh my god, my brain's fucking lapsing on him. Necron.
Right.
The Collector. Basically, like, the Collector from, like, Marvel? The Marvel movies? This is, like, him, but, like, Necrons.
That's funky. Now, later on in the week, I'd love to do an episode between you and Jester, except this time I'll actually get the timing right.
I was like, 8 o'clock? I got time to take a nap.
Yeah,
and then I'm, like, taking my nap as you're going live. The best. That's the chef's kiss. Best part.
Yeah, right. But that is the plan. I'd love to get a video with the two of you talking Warhammer.
All right.
That'd be a lot of fun. And we also got to do another episode of Destiny Solstice Edition. I'm sure we're gonna have a fun time talking about.
I could just read Glad's Twitter. I think that's what I'm gonna do for like a video. My video on the Solstice. Just read Glad's Twitter. Because, okay, you want to talk shit about me. Fine. Fuck it. Whatever. I apparently always talk shit about Destiny. Fine. Whatever. Okay.
Right.
Let's read Glad's Twitter for like half an hour. And, the guy who's got multiple worlds first and obviously loves this game. Read the salt from his Twitter for half an hour and understand that the Solstice is not a me problem. That's a Bungie problem.
Mm-hmm. Well, we can do that.
Spoiler
we can
alert.
do that. Right, listeners, we will do that. We'll read Glad's Twitter. He
like literally has this block. It's like fuck Gabbett, fuck Gabbett, fuck Gabbett, fuck Gabbett, fuck Gabbett. He's like he had another one that's like it's like you guys, you're all wrong. Solstice of Heroes is totally new content. They moved the chests.
Yeah, right. Yeah. They're in a different spot, man.
They're in a different spot, guys. Come on, it's totally new content.
Yeah, we got a lot of feelings about Solstice, and we're gonna get to that this week. So, let's tell everybody where we can find you, Joker.
You can, of course, always find me at Darkside Royalty on the YouTube and at DSR_Joker on the Twitternet.
Yeah, you can follow him for some really entertaining posts.
Some like hot takes that get me in trouble with people because They can't take jokes.
Well, that's just the internet. And you can find me at XVII Profit on Twitter. And look forward to another episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Destiny Corner. And thank you so much, Joker, for appearing once again.
Yeah, no problem, my dude.